0% new little video. On this one, I want to start the series on nutrition that I mentioned before, and this will be kind of an introduction on what's part of what the terms we're going to be talking about nutrition and things, and some high points that I wanted to focus on. So this is kind of the schedule that I have planned for this series. If you have any questions or things that you would like me to spend a little bit more time, please just write comments or specific questions. I'm still doing my research on most of them, and even like today, just doing this video, I found other stuff to add it up. So as I do my reading, research, and work on those presentation, more things that I've discovered with it. I'm no expert in that field, and actually this is part of the reason I do those things, so I can learn a little bit more. But I mean, part of nursing is to learn about nutrition and biology and how the system works and stuff. This is why I also put here, and those links of videos will be down, is that I would recommend you to watch those videos. They're a good refresher if you ever did some biology, but also if you never did or it's been a long time, they'll remind you, they'll be good, so that there's a lot of things I'll skip and I kind of take for granted, because again, to limit the time frame that I spent on those videos. So those are three videos. Two parts on the metabolism and nutrition, which I think is very important. And the other one is the first part of the digestive system. So just to kind of give you an idea how it works. So I thought there were good videos to watch. So let's start. So our diet is kind of divided in two big categories, micronutrients and micronutrients. In medicine, a lot of things are Latin, and macro means big, micro means small. So whatever the words, the small nutrients and the big nutrients. So in that category, we have the carbs, the protein, the fat, and the fiber. In the micronutrients, we have the minerals and the vitamins. So on the micronutrients part, here is what the total caloric intake, and Rogue did a good video talking about that a lot of people, when they do their preparation, they talk about how many caloric intake they need and stuff, but they don't really talk about the percentage and we may need more protein. So I'll talk a little bit more as I go through the series. But for example, protein could be it's a kind of two-sided sword, if you want, because it is very needed in a lot of issue. But for example, if you have problem with your kidneys and you're creating too protein, you can have a lot of issues as well. So it's make sure the amount of protein that you have, the right amount, and the right protein as well, which we'll talk. And so here's the percentage that they recommend per percentage. And here for the fiber, which is some people put it over here, and becomes very important in some conditions. It's 14 grams per 1,000 calories. And it's important to make a differential between the fibers. So for example, white rice is what they call a refined grain versus the whole grain, which is brown rice. And whole grain is a little bit better, because it has a higher incidence of fiber. And so when we talk about micronutrients and protein, one that will talks a lot, so it deserves its own slide, is called albumin. Albumin is the most abundant protein in blood plasma, so that's what we'll talk a little bit more about, because it does all that stuff. And some of them that are very important here is transport of drugs. So for example, if you're on a medication for whatever reason, depression or whatever else, some of the drugs that you take are what they call protein bound. So that means that they need a protein to be brought to whatever they work. And so if your albumin is low, they won't be able to have transport. So imagine that you have like people at the bus stop, and there's no bus coming to pick them up. Well, that's what albumin does, is it pick up those drugs and other stuff and transport it to other places. So if you don't have it, your drugs may not be effective. And so if you're supposed to take 2 pills a day, you can find that the efficiency of your pills now have decreased as your diet kind of goes down. But one of the most important function that we'll talk a little bit more, and some of the symptoms that you'll see when you have a low albumin, is that it keeps the water on the right side, means in your vessels, and that's called osmotic pressure. And basically what it does is it pulls the water at the right spot. But if you have not enough, the water will be pulled other places, and it won't stay really what you need, where you need it to be. And so another thing that it's important to talk about here is what we call amino acids. There's about 22 amino acids that we need, and basically what they are is, if you think about a wall that is built on different bricks, and the things that keeps the bricks together in between the bricks, this is what the amino acid is. And so it creates different walls of different size, and you need those. Of the 22 that we need to create those walls, 14 are created by our body, but there's 8 that we need from the outside world, and here they are. So why does it matters is that not all proteins are created equals. So the animal proteins that we have, like from our chickens and steaks and all that stuff, contain all 8 essential amino in one source. So a lot of time when we eat those, so fish and things like that, our animal proteins have all the 8 essential. But if we go to the vegetarian, so beans, soy, lentils, and I know a lot of people in their prep, they focus a lot on beans and lentils. You have to make sure to vary your source, because they don't have all the necessary amino acids. So if you're gonna go with this, you have to be sure to mix and match to make sure that all your amino acids are included in your prep, or even in your diet. Or else what happens is that even if you have a high protein diet coming from plants, those protein may not be they won't be effective, because it won't be able to stick together, because there's no amino acid. You don't have all the amino acid to build what you're supposed to build. When it comes to micronutrients, we have the vitamins, and in the vitamins there's 2 categories that is important to make a differential: the fat-soluble vitamins and the water. So for fat-soluble vitamin, there's a mnemonic. It's called DECA. So vitamin D, E, K, and A. And they're important because we'll see a little bit the difference between the fat and the water. And for the water, here are the other ones over here. Mostly what's important is that at the beginning of the disaster, the water vitamins will be the ones that you probably need some supplements. Later will be the fat, because your vitamins are stored in your fat, you have a bigger reserve, and so it'll take a little bit longer for them to be removed. If your fat also is too low, so that's why, for example, as we talk a little bit more, so let's say you have a disaster that lasts 2 weeks, you're probably gonna, and this is why that rule of 3, you can spend 3 weeks without eating and stuff, is that your vitamins will probably come from your fat reserve, even if you don't eat very well. But after you use those reserve, now you need to refill them, but not only the vitamins, but the fat that you use as well, because as the fat goes away, there's no place for the vitamin to store them. So that's why it's more, the fat-soluble vitamin would be more like a long-term issue. The water-soluble kind of comes a little bit quicker. And again, depends on which ones and stuff. Those ones also are a little bit less dangerous than there's less risk of having a complication, because if you take too much, your body kind of regulate. Doesn't mean there's no danger, because there's no such thing as no every drugs is everything is a poison. It's just a question of dose. But the body will excrete in your urine, so it'll be able to manipulate a little bit better what he needs. So it'll keep what he needs and get rid of what he doesn't need. So if you go on supplements for the water-soluble vitamins, it's a little bit easier for that. Those are the vitamins and nutrients micronutrients, that are the most important, and those that are more deficiency throughout the world, and also in emergency affected population. Those are from a slide that I took from the World Health Organization, and I'll talk a little bit more when I get more into details for those. The 4 major micronutrient deficiency are iron, iodine, vitamin A, and zinc. And the problem that they mostly cause is anemia, the iodine deficiency disorder, IDD, xerophthalmia, and multiple disorders on the vitamin A and zinc. So the bullet point for the vitamins is that there's a condition called hypervitaminosis, meaning hyper again from the Latin to higher, and so when you have hypertension, hyperthermia, higher temperature, so hypervitamins is you have too much vitamins. Mostly are the deca ones, so the ones that are storing your fat. Over here they talk about there's different vitamins that you'll need depending on how we store them and how we use them as well. Like just for example, B12. If you're a chronic if you drink alcohol on a regular basis, or you have other issue, a lot of people will be deficiency on B12. So those people in the self-reliance issue will be depleted much quicker than somebody that has more regular liver function and a better lifestyle. So that's an important thing also to consider. It's not just black and white. There's some disease that will affect that. The deficiency of vitamins are considered either primary or secondary. Primary means that when an organism doesn't get enough, then you don't have it. And the secondary means that there's some disease that sometime, for example, Crohn or other disease where your metabolism goes too quick, malabsorption in your guts. Some of those vitamins may be lacking, and so it's important to have supplements and stuff. So this was a quick presentation on again, I wanted to point quick points and push you to watch those videos to kind of understand, because as I go further along in that series, I'll be taking for granted that you understand the concepts that they kind of review in those, so that I limit the time for those presentations that I have to do. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or anything, just right below, and I'll talk to you soon.